Good. Let's get started. Welcome everyone to this webinar for anyone in sales with a really important topic: how to get a meeting with anyone. We will be recording this webinar and posting this later on our website and sharing it by email. We will have a Q&A at the end, so I'll ask everyone to keep their microphones muted during the session, and then unmute for the Q&A, or alternatively, go and post your questions in the chat, and we will monitor that and ask those questions later. And without further ado, I'd love to welcome Stu Heinecke, who is our guest today. Stu was named the father of contact marketing by the American Marketing Association. And by virtue of being the father of a marketing strategy, he is a growth strategist. He helps companies have an unfair advantage to get more C-level meetings. He has authored 2 books, and we'll touch upon that in the course of the webinar. 3 books.
Actually,
I apologize, Stu. Yeah. And he's an active editorial cartoonist at the Wall Street Journal. He lives in Langley, Washington, which is a town on, is it Whidbey Island?
Whidbey, yeah.
Whidbey Island, just north of Seattle, and the beautiful, obviously a very beautiful part of the world. So welcome, Stu, to this webinar.
Thank you so much. Good, great to join you.
Honored to have you. So in the lead up to this webinar, we use the phrase, if you can't get a meeting, you can't sell. And I remember that notion myself very vividly from my days at Novadex, because as a sales team, we collectively felt that once we were able to get in front of a client, our chances of closing the business were actually far greater than before. Obviously, I experienced this firsthand, but to you, the question, what led you to write your first book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone?
Well, oh my gosh, long time ago. I was just starting my career, and I wanted to create direct mail campaigns with for publishers, for magazine publishers, with all those. You probably remember all these mailings that we used to get from all the different magazines asking us to subscribe. The fact was, they were some of the most sophisticated and biggest users of direct marketing at the time. So I wanted to mix cartooning and direct marketing and personalization all together. And I was fighting a headwind from David Ogilvy and all the people who followed him. David used to say that humor doesn't work, that people don't buy from clowns, all these interesting ways of saying don't use humor, it doesn't work. And all of his acolytes would stand on stage and say, yeah, well, here's my list of 10 things you shouldn't do or to avoid, something like that. To have a successful campaign, don't do these 10 things. And humor was always used. Using humor was one of the 10 always. But I was sitting in the audience thinking, these guys don't understand humor, and they really don't understand it at all, because I knew that from readership surveys that cartoons were almost always the best read and remembered parts of magazines and newspapers. And so we're sending something in print, that's a pretty powerful thing. And so I got in touch with Rolling Stone and Bon Appetit, and I convinced them to test my premise. And so I created 2 test campaigns for those 2 magazines, and both of those test campaigns beat the controls. Does that make sense if I say that?
That makes sense, but maybe you can elaborate as to what the test, what the reference was that they were testing it against, and
exactly
how it actually fared. So
in statistics, we're always testing against the control group, and in direct marketing, the control is the most effective thing they'd put in the mail. at that point. And so if you tie a control in that environment, you're tying the record for the most response they've ever generated from a mailing in that slot in their campaign. If you beat a control, you just set the new record. And my first two campaigns that used personalized cartoons beat their controls. And it was like a rookie walking onto the Major League Baseball field and hitting 2 Grand Slam home runs. So that was a big breakthrough. And I thought, okay, great. I need to bring this to the rest. This is my opening. This is how I'm going to get to the rest of the publishing industry. And so what that meant was I needed to reach about 24 VPs of consumer marketing or circulation at the big Manhattan-based media or print media companies. So Time Inc., Condé Nast, Forbes, et cetera. So there were probably only about 24 people though that I needed to reach. That's interesting because if I reached them, it would launch my business. So I put together a little campaign. I knew it wasn't going to be easy to reach them because they're really at the VP level, which really was sort of the C level at that point. And so I put together a little campaign, didn't know what to call it. I called it a contact campaign. And the campaign consisted of an 8x10 print of one of my cartoons. It was personalized to each recipient. And it went out with a note that said, this is a device I just used to beat the controls for Rolling Stone and Bon Appetit. And I think we should put these to the test for your titles. And well, if we were live, and I don't see it, I only see you and Andrew, but I would ask the audience what they might guess that I got for a response. But I'll just jump right ahead and say that I got through to all of them. So all of them responded. All of them agreed to meet. All of them became clients. And it was worth millions of dollars, and it came from a campaign that went to just 24 people and that I spent about $100 on, which is an extraordinary result. And so, you asked about the books, and so I got really excited about them. It's like, this is amazing. In direct response, we're not supposed to get 100% response rates. They're supposed to be impossible. And in fact, I didn't even want to talk to anyone about it because they'd think I was nuts. Like I didn't know what I was talking about, but I broke through to all of them. And so I just got more and more interested in just the problem that we all face. How do we get meetings? Certainly, how do we get meetings with the people who can change everything about our scale and our success, or to scale up our careers? How do we get through to these people? Because they're usually well insulated, and they're busy. So even if they're not insulated by assistants, they're pretty gruff about it, or let's say they're pretty direct about it. I don't have time, or I'm not going to pick up the phone, whatever it is. I'm not going to respond. So what's everyone else doing? Because I thought, well, this is so cool. Cartoons do it. They open doors in a pretty magical way. And the more I dug into this, the more I realized a few things. One is that people are using the most incredibly clever and audacious ways to get meetings. It's so entertaining to actually, when we dig into some of the stories, it's just amazing what they come up with. They're quite ingenious, and really there's this shadow form of marketing out there that as I was interviewing people eventually for the book, I'm saying, okay, this is great. Thank you for sharing your strategies and tactics with me. What is this, by the way, what is this called, this thing we're doing? And there wasn't a name for it. So I called it contact marketing in my first book, and how to get a meeting with anyone. And as you mentioned later, the American Marketing Association named me the father of contact marketing because of that. But that's what led to the book, was just that as soon as I started looking into what everyone else was doing, it became just this fantastic world of marketing, but marketing focused on helping sales gain traction. So it was really quite an interesting little ride.
Yeah, let's hone in on the cartoons for a moment, because you quoted conventional thinking back then that humor wouldn't work. So what is it about cartoons that you see working in opening doors and getting meetings?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mentioned that they're almost always the best read and remembered parts of magazines and newspapers, which we got to stop for a moment and realize that's a pretty dramatic statement, because magazines and newspapers are collective works. They're produced. Well, I have a little hesitation now, but they had been produced by some of the smartest people in the world and some of the best writers, some of the best artists, and so on. But it was these simple little drawings with some sort of a hook or a gag that that caught everyone's attention. And I can remember cartoons from, I don't know, I remember one. I don't remember who drew it, but I remember one that I saw. It has to be 40 years ago, or maybe more than that now, of a receptionist in a urology ward. So it says urology ward on the sign above her desk, and she's answering the phone. She's saying, "Urology, can you hold?" I'm thinking, that's brilliant. That's a funny thing. So we remember these things. So they're quite powerful. And then and my cartoons they're always personalized. So it's always about the recipient. And so I've got to be careful then about the humor has to be very, very carefully directed. But when it is, it's quite powerful, because here's the other part of the other part of humor is really just that if you think about it, humor is always about truth being revealed in a twist. When we find something funny, well, before we can even stop laughing, we're going, oh my, like we can't even get air in our lungs. We're going, oh my God, that's so true. It is like that. Because that's what humor is about. It's about truth. When you laugh at something next, think about it, because it'll be illustrating something. It'll be doing more than just illustrating something about what you believe to be true. It's actually pointing or planting a point of agreement subliminally, immediately. So I don't know if the urology cartoon is the best example, but I mean, I guess if you wanted to say, if you're promoting a hospital and your hospital has no wait lines or no waiting room, maybe you want to say, maybe it's making the point, why wait? You know, but that is what they do. They're sort of like headlines on steroids in a way, because it just causes people to notice them and treasure them. And so I'm going to grab a big board. I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So this is my contact device. I use this a lot. And so it's a cartoon, it's an 18 by 24 inch, quarter-inch thick foam core board. And there's a cartoon about the recipient on the, I call it the front, I'm the cartoonist. So on the front, and then on the back, there's a message from the sender to the recipient explaining who they are, why they want to meet, and next steps. Branding is on there and social proof. So, you know, if I've sent a cartoon that, you know, that elicits a point of agreement that, well, I'd say that you agree with, and that really sort of pays homage to you in some way, that's a really powerful device. For example, I just held this one up. The two women are having coffee. This one is telling her friend, and I have to personalize it. So I'll just say that when I sent one of these to Mark Cuban, she's saying, Mark Cuban says you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at their Mavs tickets. I tend to agree. Well, that's true for him, right? I mean, he of course is the owner of the Mavericks, and he probably does judge people by where their seats are, and so that got framed and up on his wall in his office. So that's why they're so powerful. They're just incredible devices for not only getting someone's attention, but then also causing them to say, well, just sort of they're smiling. That's nice. They like you already for having sent this, but they're also smiling and probably nodding their head in agreement. And that's a great way to step into copy and say hi, especially copy to say, hi, hope you enjoyed the cartoon. And, you know, I think there's a great reason for us to meet. Here's what it is. And here's how we can, here's what I'll do next to reach out to you. That's a great way to walk into a cold introduction.
So for this type of entry to get a meeting in this type of contact marketing, what are other vehicles, other things that you've seen work well in this space?
Well, I think one of my favorite forms is visual metaphors. I just love those. And so there's this really interesting story of Dan Waldschmidt. So Dan is, I don't know if you know him, he's a sales blogger, but he's an ultra competitive athlete. Actually, he runs 100-mile races and wins these things. It's pretty crazy. But his blog is called Edgy Conversations, and so his personal brand is sort of a knife's edge competitiveness. And what he does professionally is he's a turnaround specialist. So he has this really interesting method for breaking through to CEOs of companies that are, well, that have just announced missed earnings estimates. And when he finds one, he has a sword made, and he's connected with one of the prop makers who made all the swords for the movie Gladiator. And so he has a custom sword made with the CEO's name engraved on the blade, and he sends it in a beautiful wooden box, felt lined, with a handwritten note that says, "Dear Henning, business is war, and I noticed you lost a battle recently. I just wanted to let you know, if you ever need a few extra hands in battle, we've got your back." He's ready to go right into battle with you, right at your side to help you fight that battle and pull your company back from the brink. And so, I will ask, what do you suppose he gets for a response to that campaign? Any guesses? And, Henning, you can guess if you want, or Stephen's the only one who's shown their face. But any guesses? You can also pop it into the.
Well, I would. My guess would be it's more than 100%, because now the sword is hanging in somebody's office or lying on somebody's desk, and then other CEOs who visit see it and say, "Hey, I have to meet this guy."
Oh my gosh, that's a great point. I don't know if that's happened in his case, but he's getting 100% response rate to this campaign. So what that means is all of the CEOs are saying, "Yeah, of course I'll talk to you." Not all of them become clients, so it's not 100% conversion. But again, it is really. I mean, you had said earlier, if you can't get meetings, you can't sell, and if you get the meetings, that raises the chances significantly. I would say if you can't get through, there's zero chance you're going to sell them. So it's what opens the possibility of selling at all. And really, it expands it quite a bit beyond zero. So to go to 100% contact rate that's amazing. But Dana's not the only one who's done that. And I will say that there's one campaign that was done by a startup that they invented a dental device, a tongue scraper, just a little plastic piece, but they invented that. They were selling it through YouTube ads for about a year, and then they decided, hey, let's go for the big time. Let's break into. Let's get this sold in Walmart, and that would have been a big development for them. So they went through the usual channels, which are always the crowded channels. They went to the purchasing department, and nothing happened. So the young guys who are kind of loose cannons in their marketing department decided to run an ad in Facebook. And so it was an ad, little tiny ad, like that size. And it said, Walmart employees have bad breath. And then it went on to say, but if you buy our tongue scraper, you won't, something like that. Well, they put it into Facebook, but of course they only ran it in the zip code that the Bentonville, Arkansas headquarters are for Walmart. So it wasn't going all over the country or all over the world. It was just there, and just to the right target demographics within them. They were just trying to reach the right buyer at Walmart. And so they heard from someone at Walmart about maybe 48 hours later. And they're saying, "Are you the ones that have this ad running on Facebook?" "Yes." "Oh my God, would you please take that down?" "Well, of course, yeah, we'll take that down." "Did that run nationally?" No, we targeted your headquarters." "Really? Well, you guys are pretty good digital marketers, aren't you?" "Yeah, we are. We're quite good at this." And so a conversation ensued, and they were introduced to the dental products buyer. That buyer said, now keep in mind, the previous year they'd sold about $1 million worth of product, which was great. That's a great outcome. The product buyer asked if they could support an order for 750,000 units. That was a $1.5 million order. And so that's a great outcome from a $28 Facebook ad. But it got even better, because when I interviewed the CEO, I asked him, "Well, okay, what did it do to your valuation? Because before that point, you were selling your device on YouTube videos. Now suddenly you're being rolled out in Walmart. What did that do to your valuation?" And he said that he thinks that was a $20 million outcome based on the order and then the jump in their valuation. So a $20 million result from a $28 ad is pretty amazing. The fact is, people have done all kinds. People have used I don't know, full page ads in the Wall Street Journal. That was used to reach Larry Ellison at one point. There are all kinds of really interesting, I'm going to grab something. This is one of my favorite little visual metaphors. Just something like this is a great little device to, it's that if you spill your coffee, you're not going to drink it. It's gone. So a great visual metaphor for loss or risk mitigation. Something about that would be a great piece for insurance, but really any leakage, any spillage that's happening in the businesses you're reaching out to. What a great metaphor, not only to highlight that, but also to say, hey, why don't we meet over a cup of coffee? Here's a Starbucks card, or let's just meet on Zoom and we'll have a cup of coffee together. There are lots of different ways that people have used their ingenuity to create these outreach campaigns, and they're just amazing little stories.
Yeah. Now I know that you're using books as well in your outreach to win clients, and I know I've been on the receiving end of one of those, which I greatly appreciate. And it's not just the book; it comes with a card, and because it's about weed and seeds, it also comes with a bag of dandelion seeds. So that is obviously something that I've seen more people do, not so many sending out full picture cartoons or full-size swords. How do the success rates compare for you between a cartoon and a book?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I have metrics to offer. I do know that authors often use their books. If you have a book, it's a great unfair advantage. First of all, not everyone has a book, so that's wonderful. And if you have a book, I know that a lot of authors use those as their contact device. I do know that also that when you're sending it to CEOs, let's say of the Fortune 500, they're getting a lot of books. So you've got to be. So I would say that it probably doesn't stand out as much as maybe a cartoon about them from one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. But I think though that if you're using a book as a contact device is really interesting, I think, because if you package it properly, you showed the insides of the package, but this is the box that I send that in, and even that's kind of conservative. There's some other packaging that I'm going to be using that, but anyway, those botanical renderings of weed species are pretty cool, and then you open it up, whoops, and it almost looks like it's wrapped in weeds, but it's not. And this guy is fun. That's a fun little device because it is a seed pack. There are dandelion seeds in there, but the backside of it is saying, look, if you don't know what it means to grow everybody knows what it means to grow like a weed, but if you don't know what it means to grow like a weed, you can open up the contents of this and spread the seeds out on your lawn and watch in horror, or you could just use it as a bookmark, which is, I think, probably what you did.
That's what I did.
Yeah,
I was tempted to throw it into
that's
my
a great
neighbor's
device,
yard, but
you could also use these to say, come and join us for let's say for a roundtable or a webinar with the author, so you can come and discuss these things. If you want to use weed strategy to grow your business, first of all, of course, read the book. I hope you enjoy it, but come and join me as my guest to meet the author, and that can be a terrific kind of campaign. And I don't have metrics that I could offer though to say these work, these produce this sort of not income, but this sort of response rate, and the cartoons produce. Well, I know what the cartoons produce, and even at that, the cartoons, it's different. It's different with every campaign. So, that's the nature of testing as well. We don't know until we address your audience with the cartoons we're going to address them with to know what it's going to be. And some companies, they have a very, very low contact rate. And so if it goes from, let's say, a few percentage points contact rate, that's kind of a low one, but to 10%, well, that's a big multiplier already. So we won't know until we test, I guess, is sort of the short answer. Yeah. After a long answer.
Good. So now let's put a little bit of a framing around it, in the sense that, like with everything in marketing, we're looking for a return on our investment. And if you sell if you sell a widget for $50, you can't afford to send a $2,000 sword in a wooden box to your client. So how would you frame the where contact marketing in the forms that we have described it here is applicable, and where is it not?
Well, I would say, first of all, if you're selling a $50 product, you won't be using contact marketing unless you're selling it in bulk, and there's a great quantity to be sold. But really, the contact marketing is, so it's contact marketing is not really, it's not consumer marketing, and it's not broad-based marketing. It's really meant as a, let's say, a rifle shot rather than a shotgun kind of approach. So we're really targeting the people who have. These are just the, I mean, in fact, in How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, I've talked about compiling your top 100 list. So these are the top 100 people who have the power to change your scale. If they were to become a client, let's say a dream client, or if they became a, let's say, a strategic partner, maybe they're going to open a sales channel to you, perhaps. If they open their sales channel to you, that might have a big effect on your business. But these are the people who have the power to change everything about your scale and about your business. Those are the ones that we want to be focused on, so that you can afford to spend a little bit. And I just held this up. This costs $14. So we're not spending $1,000 every time we send everything, but the price of these, I guess I have to say, the price per piece on these, if we're sending something physical, it can be quite high in comparison to, let's say, a direct mail campaign. Per piece, it might be 15 cents per postcard or something like that. It actually won't be like that. But, something like in a price like that, it won't be in a price range like that. It'll be, Dan spends $1,000 when he sends those custom swords. My big boards cost $250. And actually, if you were to send one of these, you're going to be, you'll be spending about $14 on the actual piece. But if you want to customize it, if you're going to put it in customized packaging, and what are you going to put in it? I mean, you won't be spending $14. So I don't want to give the impression that no, this can be done absolutely cheaply. But here's the point. If you're spending $100 per person and you're going to 100 people, that's not an expensive marketing campaign at all. That's quite inexpensive, especially as compared to the possible results that you're going to pull from it.
Yeah. So it's most commonly used to target a smaller group of people, those that are at the top of the food chain in an organization, those that are really hard or impossible to reach through digital marketing, email marketing, or anything like that. And that maybe aren't tech savvy and on social media every day and seeing a Facebook ad. Is that sort of a frame to put around it?
I would say we're on overload for all of the things that are on Facebook and LinkedIn and oh my God, especially email. Those are all crowded channels. And so I think one of the benefits of this, and I'm not saying you have to send physical pieces. It doesn't always have to be that. But if that's what you're doing, you're even just sending a piece of mail, just a handwritten letter, perhaps, with a stamp on the outer envelope is going to stand out because no one's doing that. And a lot of this is about just doing things that other people aren't doing and using uncrowded channels as opposed to crowded ones.
Okay. I have one or two more questions. Just want to encourage the audience to get ready for Q&A. If you have questions, have them ready. We'll switch to Q&A in about 3 or 4 minutes. I do want to mention, Stu, that you are listed with your cartoons on our perks page. So for an executive that works with Vendux, there is a program available. If you're an executive with us and don't know how to access the perks page, give me a call or an email, and I'll send you the instructions. Stu, to close it out, I mean, I already held up one of the two other books that you've written, the one about growing a business like a weed. Tell us a little bit about those other two books beyond the How to Get a Meeting with Anyone.
Well, so one of the books was a follow-up to How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. That was called Get the Meeting. And that was a response to a lot of the people who I heard from all over the world who said, I read your book, it changed everything. Or, I mean, a lot of people have said, it changed everything. Here's how it changed it. I went out and I got a lot. I went out and I read your book and I made $300,000 right away in sales, or I used some of the devices and it caused me to be promoted in my company because I was getting through and no one else was getting through, those kinds of things. But a lot of people were saying, I wish I could see what these campaigns look like. So I thought, okay, there is room for another book, and that's what Get the Meeting is about. So there are more techniques or categories of techniques. A lot of them are future looking. I was speculating on how we'd use AI and VR and so forth. But there are a lot of case studies in there with pictures, and so that's what that book brings to the table. And then How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed is a complete departure from getting the meetings books. That's about, I was driving down the Santa Monica Freeway one day and I noticed a dandelion growing out of a crack in the concrete median. And I thought, that's a sight that we see all the time, right? And I mean, it's just not an unusual sight at all. Weeds inhabit cracks everywhere. They probe every possible opportunity to take root, and they're specially adapted to be able to do that. I mean, it's significant that we don't see, let's say, apple trees growing out of cracks in the concrete medians and freeways, or petunias. It's weeds. They have this lots of special adaptations to make that happen. And so this one time I was driving by, I was like, man, that's just amazing. What is it about weeds that cause or enables them to be able to do that? Do they have a model that they all use? And if they do, is it something that we can apply to our businesses? And they do have a model that we can apply to our businesses. That's what the book is about, How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed. They do have a model. And I think it's actually the theory of everything about growing anything. And in fact, I'm applying it to my business. And I would say that my business and the book, and I would say that weed strategy really, I think the ultimate expression of it is that it transforms your business into a movement. And if your business is a movement, I mean, it's going to thrive no matter what's happening in the economy. It's sort of self-propelled in a way. And people just, they want to do business with you because it makes them feel good, or they want to participate in the movement. And so that is sort of the ultimate expression of using weed strategy. They're just amazing, the weeds. I mean, they just, if you watch what they do, just without saying, oh my God, the weeds, what pests they are. Look at them in my lawn. I hate them. But if you watch what they're actually doing, watch what they're doing when you try to pull them up or when you try to get rid of them, all of that. Although it's aggravating as the owner of the lawn, it's actually also inspiring if you're looking at it as a business owner saying, but wait a minute, I want to be more like that in my market. And so that's what the book's about.
Great. Well, Stu, thank you for sharing. And to the point of grow your business like a weed, I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, and I'm looking to apply some of what I picked up as learnings in my business here. So thank you. Let's open the mics here. Anyone who has a question, just unmute yourself and ask, and that way we get some dialogue going here with Stu.
Stu, I have a question. This has been so enlightening, really interesting. Love the stories. The Walmart story is amazing. You have certainly reached a level of notoriety and famousness. I know that's not a word, but you're there. And to the extent that you climb this ladder towards notoriety, don't you find it easier and easier to get meetings? So what about the flip side of the equation? When you're not famous, you have no notoriety, you're a struggling young company trying to get meetings. I'm guessing one of your answers is going to be, well, refer back to my Walmart story. But I'm just curious, you know, the balance between gaining levels of notoriety and getting meetings versus young startup companies that are trying to get meetings with key customers or partners or game changers in their business?
Well, I think, well, first of all, I would say that I don't think I'm really famous. I'm not. I mean, but some people know me, or they'll see if they if they associate the book "How to Get a Meeting with Anyone" with me. I think some of them resist. I probably get more resistance than someone who hasn't written the book. It's like, oh yeah, really? Oh, well, I'm going to show you, and so sometimes they're a little more resistant. But oh, I know, you know, it helps too. I mean, it's if you're known for I don't know, just sort of a certain content, that's always helpful. But we were talking I mean, before we started, we were talking about your son, and he's entering the aerospace field, and he's a young guy, and he's just about to head off to college. And so with your tutelage, he's been reaching out to CEOs of I think you said startups, but anyway, companies in the aerospace space, and just asking, you know, hey, I'm a young guy. I would love to get your advice on how I get into your industry, because I would love to work with you too. And if you have any spots for internships, and I know that they're saying this is endearing. I mean, we're just trying to humanize ourselves. So this is really humanizing, because this is a young guy who wants to study to get into our industry. Well, I love the enthusiasm and the initiative, and so it's not related to fame at all. It's just, you know, we're all just people, and we've got different things, special things about each of us, and it's about bringing those forward while, I guess, just sort of overcoming people's natural inclination not to want to open their time to someone they don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
totally.
mean, I think if you present it right, and I guess the Walmart example and Aura Brush was the company, but that example is probably a pretty good one. Walmart didn't know who they were, and Walmart's their buying process, or their process for bringing in new vendors, as you can imagine, is quite clogged. So it was just a smart thing for them to do, and they broke through using digital marketing in a way that eventually impressed Walmart. First, they were on, I think it was a cease and desist call, but then it impressed them, and that's what we got to do. We have to stand out as people, and we all can do that.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Stu, this is Charles Ansdown. We are a fintech startup here in Seattle. My question to you is, what are some of the key differences between contact marketing, as you have proposed it, versus account-based marketing? Are there a lot of similarities? Or are there differences? If there's similarities, what are those, and the differences, what are those?
Yeah, I think account-based marketing, I'm not sure who started the term. I know one of the founders of Terminus, and Sangram Vari is his name, and I think Sangram came up with the concept of flipping the funnel, and the concept there was to, rather than pulling in leads from various markets, and then winnowing those, just sort of funneling those down into real prospects. He was saying, why don't we know who the prospects are? And so why don't we come up with methodologies for reaching out to those people that we know we'd love to work with? And there are a lot of similarities or overlaps here, because contact marketing is about reaching out to the people who can change the scale of everything. And I would say that account-based marketing is similar to that. It's about reaching out to those accounts, and doing sort of a surround. There's a lot of discovery involved. I mean, their process and their strategy is different. I would say complementary to what it is that I'm doing, because they're saying, okay, who do we need to reach? Who are the influencers? Who are the people who are making decisions? How do we create a sort of a surround campaign so that all of them have been addressed and are being influenced to go forward with a sale? And in my case, I'm just trying to get a hold of the person in charge, and I want to do it quickly. I don't want to take a lot of time doing it. I want to just break through. I want to have a positive conversation. So they're saying, well, you know, I've never had someone send something like that. We loved it. We were passing it around. So, and I was just saying, I just have to meet the person behind this because I love the way you think. And I think if we can get someone to say, I love the way you think, that is the people we're reaching out to, if we can get them to say that, well, I guess a lot of the battle is getting the meeting, but the rest of it is if we can get them saying, man, I love the way this person thinks, then, you know, the conversation that you have when you first start out is going to be at a much higher level. And that's the goal of contact marketing, is to get people to that point. Whereas I think account-based marketing is, it's more of a go-to-market strategy, I would say. And it's about saying, look, these are the companies that we have to do business with. How are we going to do it? Who do we need to reach? How are we going to influence them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah.
And by the way, I noticed in the text that you're in Seattle, so hello, not very far away.
I am. Yeah. I know Langley pretty well. I have a lot of friends who live in Langley, so yeah, I'm there quite often. So, but I think what you said makes sense, right? I kind of from what I've learned in this conversation, you know, it seems to me that contact marketing is a component of account-based marketing, where that is the your point of entry, right? So how do you get that first meeting with those key decision makers, right? And so that you can show to them that, hey, you can provide value to solve their problems, right? And then there's a follow through, right? Yeah, get them first meeting is great, but then you need to follow through on that and deliver on that promise, right? I think that's where account marketing really has to shine. So. Yeah, so I kind of look at them as complementary, right?
I think that makes sense. They do fit together, certainly. Yeah.
Great. Any further questions?
So, Stu, for the millions and millions of companies that are doing email marketing, mass outbound campaigns, LinkedIn, all the various platforms with the basic campaign stuff, the drip campaigns, for example, what is your broad message? Total waste of time?
Well, we can spot those a mile away. We know when we're in a cadence, right? We know we're in one of those. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone's being fooled by that. Sometimes we want to have contact, and I have my inbox is quite full from vendors that I want to be in touch with, but I'm not buying from them right now, but I don't want to lose contact with them. So there's those. But when we're talking about B2B sales and someone's trying to break through, I think there are a few mistakes that they're making. One is that their copy is way too long. You know, if you get a page of copy from someone you don't know and you can see that they're trying to sell you something, it's an immediate turnoff. You're not going to get through it. And so writing all that copy is a waste of time. It's a waste of time for the copywriter or whoever's writing it. It's also a big waste of time for the person they're sending it to or the people they're sending it to. And that's a horrible thing to do. That's a horrible way to start out a relationship, certainly. But because I think it just says, I don't value your time, or I don't understand the concept of valuing your time. And there's a really interesting little anecdote here. When I was interviewing Aaron Ross, Aaron wrote Predictable Revenue and a few other books, but I was interviewing him and he said, I once tried, he said, short copy he certainly believes in short copy. And he said, I once reached out to Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce, and I kept it under a dozen words. So I wrote to him and I said, we do this. Is that of interest? And he said he heard back from Mark within 30 seconds. Now, that's probably not happening with anybody's cadence going to Mark Benioff, right? They're not hearing back from him in 30 seconds. And so I thought, I don't know, I'm pretty mischievous. I thought, okay, I can't resist that. I've got to try it too. And so I didn't say we do this, is that of interest, but I wrote a little note under 12 words, and I heard back from him also within 30 seconds. So I'll bet you anything that the HubSpot and Marketo and all these other sources of these cadences, or these email cadences, are not getting through to people like that because, well, I don't admit they're probably going into their spam folder or something, but they're not getting through. And I mean, I don't mean just like it gets into their inbox or they happen to open it up. I mean, really breaking through to them on a human level. So they say, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. Or even if they say, no, that we're not in the market for that, at least it's a response. Because I would think that most of that doesn't even elicit a response. So I just think in general, you know, we have the choice to either pursue clogged channels, or crowded channels, or uncrowded channels. And I just think it makes a lot of sense to go to the uncrowded channels, do things that people aren't doing. And just by doing that, you stand out. You get to stand out a lot. You have greater chance for standing out, for one thing. But I mentioned a moment ago, sending a handwritten letter through the mail is something nobody's doing. So, and I know people get caught up in, well, that's old school or new school, but I'm new school and not. Don't get caught up in that. It's not about that. It's about using what works. And I think a lot of what works is identifying channels that either are uncrowded or maybe even starting your own channel, if that makes sense. But doing something that people aren't doing, others aren't doing, is just a big way to stand out.
Pearls of wisdom. Thank you.
Wonderful. If I'm just going to artificially cut it off now, even if there are further questions, we're 45 minutes in. We want to keep those webinars to 30 to 40 minutes. If you have further questions or want to contact Stu, what's the best way, Stu, for them to reach out to you?
Well, I mean, you can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. Mention that you saw me on or heard me. I don't know if it's audio or video, but that you saw or heard the webinar, and I'm happy to connect that way. You can go to my author site. That's, if you can see my name spelled on the screen, it's stuheinecke.com. So StuHeinecke.com. And if you'd like to work together, because I would love to work with you to help you you or your sales teams break through, then you can actually do it right through the Vendux. I think it was called the
it's on the perks page. Yes.
On the perks page, yeah. You can also reach me that way. Good.
Great. Thank you, Stu, for being our guest. It was a very interesting, very thought-provoking webinar. I really enjoyed having you, and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day and a wonderful rest of their week. Take care.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.